Great. So thank you. And let me go ahead and I will share my screen with everybody. Just give me 1 second here. Okay. Let me hit one more thing, actually. Let me just do one more thing. Sorry about that. I just need to make sure that I share my sound as well.
Kids or adults, how to swim. Our kids went to swim class.
Give me one more second here. Okay. Can everybody see my screen now? You see the presentation screen?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Perfect. Okay. I just had to make sure I was sharing my sound as well because I have a small video to share with you tonight. So welcome to everybody. I'm glad so many of you could make it this evening. We're here to, again, my name is Katrina Knudsen. I am with the Department of Planning and Development. I'm here to talk to you about proposed amendments to the comprehensive plan and give you an overview of what the comprehensive plan is. I will focus on 2 plan amendments that are just south of Old Keene Mill Road along Backlick Road and Amherst Avenue. Like I said, the meeting is being recorded and it'll be available in a few days. And I will put, before we leave tonight, I will put the webpage in the chat. Great. And so let me go ahead and move on to see what screen over here. Great. So the agenda for tonight is I have a presentation that I will be giving to you all. I'll be talking about the comprehensive plan, kind of what we refer to as a comprehensive plan 101. I'll be talking about existing uses on the site, the comprehensive plan, what it's planned for right now for the subject sites, the proposed plan for the subject sites. I'll also be talking about some impacts, some existing plan recommendations, and some considerations. And then at the end of my presentation, we'll have time for a Q&A. And then the second presentation actually will be given by the nominator or by one of the property owners, a representative of one of the property owners, and who put forth the proposal that we're going to be discussing. And they'll also be talking about the transportation analysis that they performed for the project. And there will also be the opportunity after that for questions and answers. One thing I will ask you is if you have, we do have somebody monitoring the chat this evening, so simple questions can go in that chat. But if you have more complex questions or if you have any comments, if you could please hold those and ask afterwards so that we can address them fully. Great, thank you. Okay, so this is where I start off with kind of that comp plan 101. But this diagram here shows the land development process in Fairfax County that happens over many years. It's the life cycle of the built environment. And tonight, what we're here to talk about is a comprehensive plan amendment. And that's really one of the first steps in this whole entire process. This that goes around this wheel here. And then, and also part of that is also the zoning entitlement. But like I said, we will only be talking about the comprehensive plan amendment this evening. Sorry, my mouse isn't cooperating here. Go to the next screen here. I'll just hit. Okay. So I have about a 3-minute video here that talks about the comprehensive plan. And if for some reason this video doesn't work, I do have a backup slide, but I'm going to go ahead and start and share this. If for some reason you can't hear the audio, just please let me know.
our Planning 101 video series featuring short videos on long-range planning in Fairfax County. In this series, we'll be taking you through terms and documents that are important to long-range planning and how our residents can participate in the process. So let's get started. Do you ever wonder what determines the pattern of development in a community? Sure, people buy land and build houses, businesses, hotels, and other types of buildings. But what determines what goes where? Well, if you live in Fairfax County, you can start by looking at the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan identifies county priorities for land use and is a guide for decisions that impact the built and natural environment. That includes what types of development are recommended where, how intense those developments might be, ensuring Fairfax County has long-term plans that promote livable, prosperous, and equitable communities. The foundational guide for all development and growth in the county, the one big long-term plan that guides it all, is the Fairfax County Comprehensive Plan. The comprehensive plan is, yes, required by state law, and it is also used as a guide for decision-making about how land is developed and used, a reference for the public on strategic goals when it comes to development in the future of the county. The comprehensive plan includes general county-wide policy recommendations for land use, housing, heritage resources, the environment and sustainability, public facilities like schools, fire stations, and parks, and transportation systems, including roads, trails, and transit, among other topics. It also includes 4 area plan volumes. Those area plans include recommendations organized by 4 geographical areas in the county. These recommendations give guidance on how land could be used in the future. But we should make it clear, the plan does not determine when or what developments will actually happen. The comprehensive plan also includes a plan map that shows recommended land uses throughout the county. Think of the comprehensive plan as a general guidance for land use, which creates the vision for the future of the county. While we have an idea of the types of uses that are preferred for the different areas of Fairfax County, it's up to the board to approve proposals to implement the plan. With the comprehensive plan, Fairfax County has a layout and a map for the future. It provides an outline for the Board of Supervisors, and neighborhoods and communities have guidelines for what can be developed and how residents in the community's priorities can be met. The comprehensive plan provides a roadmap for how the place where you live and work could change in the future. It helps guide development for the benefit of current and future residents, workers, and visitors. Thanks for watching our first short video on long-range planning. Stay tuned for more videos and to learn how you can get more involved.
All right, so just to give here's a side-by-side comparison of the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance, because often people are more familiar with the zoning ordinance versus the comprehensive plan. But as noted earlier, the plan is a guide, not law, and it provides recommendations about land use, transportation, environment, and other topics. The plan is implemented through zoning, which is law, and where specific standards can be found, such as regulations for setbacks, open space, parking, and specific uses. And changes to the zoning map are requested through the redevelopment process. And during this process, proposals are evaluated for conformance with the comprehensive plan. So it is often the first step in the process. So one of the most important elements of the comprehensive plan is the map shown on this slide, which is called the Concept for Future Development Map. And it's an overarching guide for where development should occur in the county. The concept's policy direction in the area plans of the comprehensive plan, which are illustrated on this map. It's for the majority of the future growth and development to occur within designated mixed-use centers. And there are a number of land classifications shown on this map that embody different types of mixed-use centers. One that I'll highlight tonight that's important for tonight's discussion is the area shown in red here. And I'm going to really quickly just grab my laser pointer so that, so this area right here shown in red, this is the Springfield Community Business Center, and that's where the proposal that we're talking about this evening, that's where it's located. So this is one of those mixed use centers that we have in the concept for future development. And let me get my mouse here. And then areas outside of this and the mixed use center, such as the areas in yellow, those are what we refer to as our suburban neighborhood classifications. And those are areas where we expect little to no change. So a lot of the growth and change in the county are going to be shown in these areas in, Tyson's urban center, in the areas in purple, our suburban centers, and those and the areas in red, which are community business centers, and then transit station areas, which are kind of the these like beige colored areas. So there are a couple of ways that we change the comprehensive plan, or how we amend the comprehensive plan. We generally have two ways to amend the plan. We amend it through area-wide studies. This slide shows an example of what the area might be for a larger study. And this is actually this Franconia Springfield area. This is the, again, the Springfield Community Business Center and the Franconia Springfield Transit Station area. And these type of studies typically take 1 to 3 years to process, depending on the scale and complexity. They involve larger areas and have extensive community engagement that is key to the process. And we often have a task force or community group that shepherds the process along with staff. Studies involve many meetings with the communities throughout the process, and we're actually hoping to start a planning study soon for the areas shown in yellow and shown in pink here. The other way that we frequently amend the comprehensive plan, and that's what we're talking about tonight, is a site-specific amendment. These are frequently associated with rezoning applications, but not always, as is the case right now. There's not a rezoning proposed for the site yet. Timelines vary, but will be coordinated with the rezoning if that's appropriate. Otherwise, again, the time frame for them can vary widely. But they usually are much shorter than you would find for an area study. The community outreach is also key, and the methods it's based on the proposal circumstances. So when asking how a site should develop in the future, staff considers many things. We look at what are the benefits and impacts to the community. Our review involves staff from many different county departments and many areas of expertise. And as a staff coordinator for a plan amendment, I gather comments from all the agencies and consider those when evaluating a plan amendment and working through a draft plan recommendation. So we get recommendations from our transportation staff, from environmental staff. We also get input from Fairfax County Public Schools. We get input from housing. We also get input, when it's applicable, from heritage resources. So starting to talk about the actual proposed plan amendment. There are actually 2 proposed plan amendments currently being proposed under under consideration. Both were nominated as part of the site-specific plan amendment process conducted by the county, where people could nominate land to be considered for a plan amendment. The Springfield Blvd plan amendment was nominated by Mark Vianney, representing the owner and developer, and the Amherst Avenue was nominated by the county to be considered in coordination with the Springfield Blvd plan amendment, recognizing that both these properties contained vacant buildings, and since they were adjacent, they could potentially be developed together. So the first plan amendment I'm going to talk about is the Springfield Boulevard Plan Amendment. It's located south of Old Keene Mill Road, and it's between the I-95 on-ramp and the Amherst Avenue, and here's the bridge right there. The site's 4.35 acres, and it contains about 14,000 square feet of vacant buildings and about 24,000 square feet of retail buildings. The current businesses located here include 2 dry cleaners, a nail spa, a bank, an auto parts store, and an auto sales and service shop. Here are some just photos of the site. These are the vacant buildings here, and then you have the retail buildings here as well as here on the site. Okay, so for the Amherst Avenue Plan Amendment, it's located south of Old Keene Mill Road and north of Springfield Boulevard here, these parcels here, as well as over here, which is, so it's basically the area south of Old Keene Mill and north of Springfield Boulevard, flanking Amherst Avenue to the east and west. The 2 sites are 1.42 acres. And these, again, as I mentioned, these sites were nominated by the county during the site-specific plan amendment process. They are adjacent to the Springfield Boulevard Plan Amendment, and they contain about 25,000 square feet of vacant office building, as well as about 6,000 square feet of vacant retail. The other site, the one over here, that's actually a parking lot. These properties have been in this condition for a while, and nominating this property for a plan amendment allows us to consider this property along with the other properties, which could result in a more cohesive redevelopment of the area, and also has potential not to limit the logical redevelopment of either property. And so these are just some photos of the site. You've got an office building here, a vacant retail building, and then you have the parking lot area. Okay, so what the comprehensive plan currently has recommendations for this entire area. And this is the area that we're talking about here, subject area for this evening. So this area right here, right now in the comprehensive plan, it has medium intensity retail with an option with substantial consolidation for retail and office at a higher intensity. This is another parcel here. It's planned at the base in the comprehensive plan recommendation for medium intensity with office ground floor retail. It also has an option for auto sales and service. And then there's a higher intensity option, which would require consolidation of all the parcels so they could redevelop together. And then over here, just the surrounding area is planned similarly, medium intensity retail. You also have, for this whole kind of blue area here, you have auto sales and service with again a higher intensity when you have parcel consolidation. So then over here, this area here is planned for and is also developed with automobile sales and service. And then this yellow right here is planned for low intensity retail and office. And this is at the one parcel with the parking lot. And then you've got the commuter garage over here, which is planned and built with a commuter parking garage. Okay, so what's being proposed for the change to the comprehensive plan. The proposal is for the Springfield Boulevard for this area here. It's for 610 multifamily units. We're looking at also approximately 10,000 square feet of ground floor retail and with a maximum building height of 85 feet. Now, for Amherst Avenue, the idea behind the Amherst Avenue is the coordination of the plan recommendations with the Springfield Boulevard Plan Amendment. And then redevelopment of the area to redevelopment of the entire area to not preclude logical redevelopment of the northern property. And with this right here, this property, you'd have about 122 additional multifamily units. So that means about 732 multifamily buildings for the entire area. So when we're talking about the entire area, it's this area in white as well as this area in blue here. Okay, so some of the impacts on the proposed plan amendment, and again, when I showed you that slide earlier, we reach out to Fairfax County Public Schools to get their input on development on plan amendments, and they provide us with some numbers. And they give us the potential student yield. Now, these are the three schools serving this site. You have Garfield Elementary, Key Middle School, and Lewis High School. So the potential yield for the elementary school age children would be 44. Potential yield for middle school would be 14 students, and the potential yield for the high school would be 20 students. And then also, as part of the capital improvements program for the schools, they have an idea of a projection for the capacity for schools. And so in this particular case, these schools all currently have surplus capacity. So they take that into consideration, when they give us these numbers. And then they give us kind of the capital improvements plan also proposes potential solutions for the additional students. So in this case, it would be monitor student membership for all of these schools based on the fact that currently they have surplus capacity at the schools. Okay, and then we also look at parks. And I will note that the number here is slightly lower because the previous concept that we were given had a slightly lower unit count, 6 units, which really in this case doesn't, it very minimally changes any of the numbers. But Parks bases this on population from the unit counts that were given, they extrapolate a population. And all of these are service level needs. They have that they have currently. And so, for example, between these two proposals, the service level needs for, say, an urban park would be about 1.9 acres. And then, as you can see, we have rectangular fields, we have baseball fields, adult softball fields, and these are the needs that those would generate. And obviously, those can't all be met on the site. So it could be that either part of this open space might be met on the site for, let's say, the urban parks, or at the time of rezoning, there could potentially be a voluntary contribution to help mitigate some of these needs. Okay, I just want to talk a little bit about sort of what is in the plan right now. We have several maps. This is our systems map that's in the comprehensive plan for the CBC and the TSA. And as you can see, it's got this interconnected a network of open space. And it's basically, this map lays out the vision for open space, the open space network in the area, and to create connectivity between the various different sites. And the stars here, for example, again, these are illustrative. These are ideal locations that are laid out in the comp plan. The stars here are opportunities for pocket parks, and the larger green asterisks are shown for areas potential for placemaking opportunities such as common greens. And this over here is actually from the design guidelines, which are an appendix to the comprehensive plan. Again, it talks about areas for placemaking as well. And then so the more detailed information about the transportation analysis will be provided in the second presentation. But I did want to pull some things from the comprehensive plan. One thing of note that I wanted to point out was one of the recommendations in the comprehensive plan for transportation is a bridge on Backlick going over Old Key Mill, connecting the northern area here with the southern area of the community business center. So to provide that additional connectivity, there'd be 2 one-way pairs here. Now, this is a recommendation that's currently in the comprehensive plan. And one of the things that we have asked the nominator is to make sure that whatever they're showing, whatever they would be proposing, that it could accommodate that recommendation in their proposal. The other thing too is I wanted to show a couple of, this is the trails map that's in the comprehensive plan, and it right now shows a major paved trail going north and south here. And then there are obviously some minor paved trails here as well, but this is running along Amherst Avenue. And then there's also some bike recommendations as well. We have bike lane is shown in blue here, but on the specific along the site here, we have a cycle track that's recommended currently in the bicycle master plan. And I just wanted to mention that I do have SCDOT staff here tonight, Fairfax County Department of Transportation staff, and so they can answer any specific questions that you might have. And I know right now, there is the active Fairfax project that's currently working on updating the bicycle and pedestrian recommendations, and that's underway right now. Okay, and then some of the other impacts that we get feedback from are sewer. In this case, there are adequate trunk sewer, so those are the larger sewers so that there is adequate service for this proposal. And fire and rescue as well. We get feedback from them, and that I've been told that there's for the existing fire and rescue will support the proposed plan amendment. And the first due station actually for this area is the Springfield Volunteer Fire Station. Now, that's not to say if there weren't a call during the day that any apparatus or any fire truck that were in the area, they would respond to it. But say like in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m., the Springfield Volunteer Fire Station would be the first due station. And then also police and adequate facilities to serve the proposed plan amendment area. So some of the considerations that we're looking at is for the plan amendments. It's noise due to proximity to major roadways and I-95. We're interested in making sure that the comprehensive plan recommendations look at streetscape improvements and bicycle and pedestrian amenities, making sure we have adequate and usable open space for residential and in proximity to urban parks. We're considering the fact that these properties have vacant buildings and the conditions of the property. And then we're looking at consolidation of the northern parcels between Old Key Mill Road and Springfield Boulevard to ensure they can be developed. We're considering the adopted plan recommendation for the Backlick Road Bridge and the potential for any interim improvements as well. And then traffic along Backlick Road, that's another consideration. And then also one of the things is the Springfield Market Study, which was a study done by the Economic Development Authority with the county, is that a portion of this area was identified in that market study as a catalyst location for residential development. So I just wanted to mention that as well. Okay, so as far as next steps, the next steps in this would be kind of in the fall timeframe. We'd be looking at a staff report publication on these proposals, on these 2 plan amendments. And then we typically take these to the Franconia District Land Use Committee, and they would make a recommendation and vote on that. And then it would go to the Planning Commission public hearing. And then after that, the Board of Supervisors would make the final decision on the plan amendments, whether to adopt them. And then lastly, after this process, or sometimes there is some overlap, but in this case, no rezoning has been submitted. So, but the next step kind of would be that rezoning process. But the timeline for that is to be determined. So, all right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and end my presentation, and I can answer questions then. Great. Let me check out the chat. I know that there's probably quite a few questions in the chat.
I've got a question.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I'm with the newspaper.
Mhm.
What was your email again? That was real quick.
Sure. It's Katrina, Katrina .Knutson, NEWTSON at fairfaxcounty.gov. I can go ahead and put that in the chat too.
Okay, and I got another question.
Sure.
When would anything any ground be broken, or I see the next steps here for the fall, but are we talking 10 years down the road?
Well, I can't speak to as far as the overall timeline. Yes, it'll be many years. In the next presentation, Mark Vianney may be able to address kind of their plans as far as rezoning, but typically speaking, I mean, it's going to be years before any ground would. Again, this is as you saw that diagram in the very it's going to be years, before anything before that could occur.
You want me to stop? Just for continuity, Mr. Summon, I could maybe answer. I'll get into this when we get further, but I can answer your question a little bit right now, just so you don't have to come back to it. We're at the beginning, as Katrina mentioned. There's a rezoning process. There's a comp plans process. Then there would be a rezoning process. The rezoning process is where a really lot of the hard math comes in there. See a lot of questions about how things are going to be accommodated and where things are going to come from and stuff. That's going to be part of that process. Then, assuming you get past rezoning, you would then go to a process called site plans, an engineering site plan process, and that takes like another year. So let's just say we get through comprehensive plan process by December of this year. You'd be looking at rezoning probably so if we filed a rezoning application, probably around October, November timeframe this year. Probably looking at rezoning, if it gets approved, probably about 12 months after that. Then you would be looking again, this is hitting all green lights, which I think, we expect. This is a pretty difficult and complex project. So these are really optimistic numbers, and assuming everything gets approved in sequence. The next thing would be engineering site plan process. That's going to take another year or so after that. So now you're talking 2 years, 2.5 years at this point. Then you got building permit. Then you got construction. Construction probably, I don't know how long it would take here. I've deferred to the experts on that, but I'd say probably 2.5 years on there. So you're probably talking at the earliest, just under 3 years, to get a shovel in the ground, to start. And that's assuming we don't have, get people moving out and guarding new tenants and stuff like that. You're talking about years away till you're going to see any really substantial change on the ground. But this is the process by which we have to go.
Okay, all right. Thanks, I appreciate that.
Great. Are there any other questions that I can answer for staff before we proceed to the next presentation? That would be Mark Vianney, I don't
I'm
see
sorry,
any.
who is Mike Biani? Could you tell me his title, please?
My name is Mark Vianney. I'm an attorney with Bean, Kinney and Corman. I'm the representative for the applicant in one of the two comprehensive plan amendments. So I'm part
And
of
you're with Beecham and what? Sorry.
I'm with Bean, Kinney and Corman, BeanKinney and Corman, Korman, and it's a law firm. So we represent the developers and the property owners of 3 of those blocks, and then there's the counterpart property, next to us, and their representatives may be on here today or not.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Are you not able to talk about transportation? Should I hold my transportation questions to the next brief?
I'm not a transportation expert, but I'm going to play one on Zoom because our transportation expert couldn't make it here tonight. So I do have the numbers, and I will start walking through that. But again, we are very, very in the early process of the comprehensive plan process, the rezoning process as well. And so this is the first of many, many conversations we're going to be having with the community and with everybody on this process. So please don't think everything's set or done or.
Right. No, I don't think that. I just, transportation is a huge concern of mine because it's already backed up now. So I would
It
want
is.
to know who
That is-
pays for it first of all,
Mhm.
Before, we start into the planning. Is it the developer that pays for it or is it the taxpayers?
Developers going to pay for a lot of it. Taxpayers will pay for some of it. It's pro rata, but we're going to walk right through I think you're talking particularly about I'm going to say probably Old Backlick, the stacking on Old Backlick.
I'm more concerned with Amherst and Backlick.
Okay. Well, I can talk to you about Old Backlick and
Yeah.
We
So
can
I
keep the
think,
conversation beyond this meeting too.
Okay.
yeah. So it sounds like, I think, tell you what, why don't we have, Mr. Vianney, you can go ahead and start on his presentation. And then if there are any additional questions afterwards, then, they'll go to whoever they need to go to. Okay.
Katrina,
Yes,
this is Gail
sorry.
Little.
Hi, yes. Hi, Gail.
Yeah, you covered quite a bit of ground. I saw a number of questions in the chat that would pertain to the subject matter that you covered. For
Okay.
example, where the figures come to. I'd like to, if you don't mind, if it doesn't mess Mark up.
Sure. No, that's fine. No, I'm
to
happy.
answer those questions while that
Yes.
information is fresh in our minds and we can refer back to it. Like, where did the numbers that you get that
Sure.
you gave to the schools
So,
come from?
Right. The numbers actually, and I think Graham kind of addressed that, but I'm happy to. So when we, what we do is we will send information to the various different agencies. So Fairfax County Public Schools is one of those agencies, and we send information to them on the number of units, and then they have formulas that they use to generate student yields. And I don't have the formulas right in front of me, but they have different formulas for single family homes, townhomes, or attached homes, and then for high-rise multifamily and low-rise multifamily. And then the low-rise multifamily is usually, I believe it's 4 stories or less. And then above that would be their high-rise numbers. And typically speaking, you could, the single family homes will generate more students than will an attached home, and then it kind of goes down. Then multifamily, low rise will generate more students, and high rise typically generates the few students based on the formulas that they've developed.
And how tall were these buildings that we're talking of here?
They're probably going to be 7 to 8 stories. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong.
85 feet.
Yes. Yeah. So they would be the high rise formula that the schools would use in this case. And those were the numbers that I presented. And then as far as the school capacities, and that's information that's available, online. It's in the capital improvements plan. They have it projected for this year, and then they have it projected out for the next 5 years. But the schools don't go beyond 5 years. That's the longest projection that they have.
So if the schools are overcrowded now by classrooms, then what happens when you add those additional students?
Well, there's various, again, in the CIP, they have various different approaches that they take to address any additional students. And it ranges from, reprogramming of classrooms to, I mean, yes, it can also involve adding mobile classrooms to the site. So there's various different approaches. I think they look at each school individually based on how they can accommodate additional students.
And Katrina, there was a question that Carol had
Yeah.
about other properties in the area that are going through similar planning processes. You want to take that one? I dropped a link in the chat to the cumulative analysis that you had done.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. So there are some other plan amendments in the area. We have one is Innova, and that one right now is in flux. We're not sure about that one right now. But the other ones are the Franconia Triangle. That's down Franconia Road past Franconia Road and Beulah Street. There are a couple proposals there as well. There's a plan amendment there for one is two proposals, really part of that. There's 120 multifamily affordable units there, along with a development on the kind of set on Beulah and Grovedale. That's for 30 multifamily units and 66 townhomes. Those are in the plan. These are all, when I'm talking about these are all in the plan amendment stage. So none of these have rezonings associated with them. Those are really what we refer to on our work program is tier 1. So they are the more priority plan amendments that we currently are processing right now. There are some other plan amendments, but they're tier 3. And so basically they're on hold for the time being.
I'm more familiar with those than with
Mhm.
this one on the Springfield Boulevard, Amherst. And
Sure.
from one of your maps, it looked like the 3 parcels that are in the Amherst and Springfield Boulevard applications are not the only parcels that are in that triangle or whatever you want to call it within those boundaries of those streets. So my question was, are there additional properties in addition to the 3 that we're discussing here? And how are they zoned and what happens to them? I guess they'll come along in another couple of years.
These are the ones that are part of this plan amendment. As far as any other properties in the area, I'm not aware of any proposals at this time. Yes, they could, I mean, as any property could, they could submit a nomination in the future when we have the process available to them. They could submit for a plan amendment. I will say that we do have on our work program a larger study for this area. So we will be looking at that community business center, which is basically kind of the downtown Springfield area, all that commercial area there. We'll be looking at that, and then at least we hope to. And then on the other side of 95, looking at the area around the mall and that area as well. So anything in the future we could look at as part of that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions in the chat that let's see here. See. As far as Mark could potentially address rental apartments versus condominiums. I'm not sure, so I'll wait for the next presentation. And then let's see here.
Sorry, I have young adults running between me and behind the garage to getting stuff out of the refrigerator out there. So I'll be back on. Got a little bit of circus in the background.
Sure. See.
But my understanding is these are going to be rental apartments.
Okay. And as far as, I do not know the answer, I can get an answer as far as the maximum building height. I know that when I did, you know, I speak to the person in our fire department who looks at, you know, things across the county, and you know, and she's aware of all information that you all have received, you know, with the 85-foot height for these buildings. And you know, the information I get from her is that they have the facilities to service the proposal. And they will look at it more closely when it goes through the rezoning process as well.
Julie had a question about specific opportunities for community members to provide suggestions ahead of the staff report.
Sure. I mean, you're welcome to submit anything. You know, you can email me, you know, you can contact me, and I can make sure that information is relayed. And we also will be going to the Franconia District Land Use Committee as well in the fall, prior to the Planning Commission. But again, at any time, feel free to reach out to me. You can email me, and I can pass information on, to the developer and to, our planning commissioners, and also to our supervisor as well. So. Okay.
That's encouraging.
Okay. And let's see here. Any other, sorry, I'm just looking through the chat to see if there's, if anybody else thinks I've missed their questions, please let me know. Otherwise, we can move on to Mark's presentation. And if you think of anything else, we will be here so we can answer any questions and hear any comments that you might have. So if everybody's okay, I think, and I'll continue looking through the chat and seeing if I've missed any questions that anybody has. So tell you what, why don't we go ahead and have Mark move on? He can give his presentation, and I'm sure maybe he'll answer some of your questions, or you'll have more questions. So go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. I will keep it with a lot of questions, and I've got half the student body of Virginia Tech and Penn State running around behind me, so I will keep this presentation very short, and try to avoid the repetition, and so we can get back to your questions. And if you see me periodically shut off my camera, stuff like that, I'm here, I'm monitoring. It's just there's a lot going on. But let me pull this up real quickly. Here we are. And let me ask you first. That is not, hold on. What's going on here? Hold on a second here. Okay, here we go. Yeah, it's been open for so long, the screen had locked up. Okay, real briefly, with regard to the two projects that two complements that Katrina talked about, we represent this project here, which is the one you see in the 3 blue kind of ghosted in areas, and that is right now we talk about kind of the northeast parcel, the western parcel, and the southern parcel we'll talk about. And the northeast parcel is the parcel, if you can remember, about 2018, we got it approved for a hotel. All right. It was going to be about 190 key hotel, about 85 feet high. And we got it approved in fall of 2018, got site plan approved in fall of 2019. We then began environmental demolition in the first quarter of 2020. And at that time, the pandemic hit. We'd already kind of done the environmental demolition. The tenants were out of there. And then the project lost its financing, as all hotel projects did at that time. And so that project is kind of laid fallow. It's been the source of some problems in terms of vagrants in the area. People come along and they come up North Backlick and they jump the curb there and they kick trash off the back of the truck, off their trucks. Then they kind of use the on-ramps on the 95 almost as an escape ramp there. So that's an area right now you'll see has had a lot of like chain link fences put in there as protection. So that's one site there. The western parcel is a first single-story retail parcel. It performs pretty well. It's got a lot of good performing, just classic kind of neighborhood retail area in there. And then to the southern parcel is automotive sales, automotive repair uses focused on that. The other project, I think, the other comp plan amendment that's being proposed is immediately north of the western parcel. That's a property owned by the Jamal family, and then the one across from Amherst. They're neither shown on this one, but those are the two there. They're very experienced developers, very sophisticated folks, do good work. They may at some point come in and do a project either in concert with this project or do their own thing. We don't represent them, but they're good people to have next door. Moving to the next thing. All right, zooming in closer here. What we're proposing to do on this is the eastern parcel, the western parcel, and the southern parcel is replace all that development that the basically abandoned automotive uses and old retail uses there, coming in with a 8-story apartment building that's going to be located right here. Then what we're planning on doing is also kind of widening and kind of beautifying Springfield Boulevard. Doing it, the goal was basically try to make this as new kind of taking Springfield Boulevard, make it kind of a nicer promenade going down to where the new parking garage is. And so we'll be looking at widening Springfield Boulevard, adding parking lanes, and adding much wider parking lot sidewalks as well, outdoor seating and the like. And then, so you'd have about 260 residential units in a 85-story tall apartment building on Land Bay A. Then you would have on both the western parcel and the southern parcel, the kind of matching projects where it'd be about 175 units over on top of first floor retail. That's going to be along Springfield Boulevard. And then zooming in here a little bit, if this will work for me. Our goal is to try to, keep some of the same traffic scheme right here, but, adding in opportunities for people to park right here, adding a much wider sidewalk area with trees and kind of a better landscaped element. The goal being somewhat inspired by, for those of you who may remember way back in the day, the late 90s, the first block of Shirlington, coming in with something like that. And so that's what our thought is, to do that. And then you'd have retail right here. Then above that, you would have residential. And then all three buildings would have their own internal parking garages into the building. There'd be no parking, on the street and stuff like that. We would be providing new on-street parking, but that'd be for the public in general. There. Now, looking back, this is on Old Backlick looking south. And so what you see over on the left side of the screen here with the chain link fence, this is that the eastern parcel I was talking about. This is the Old Backlick right as you're heading up to the approach to Old Keene Mill Road. And right now you have 2 turn lanes here and you have 1 southbound lane. Then you have that single floor retail parcel. That's the western parcel right there. And, one thing that I think we've constantly seen there is this is a source of a lot of backup, a lot of parking right here. People backing up as they're trying to kind of to turn on to either Old Keene Mill Road or get themselves onto 395. And there's a little bit of hesitation with the impact of the tracking. And sometimes today, here's photo, there's not that much traffic there, but very often you have traffic that backs up to and beyond the intersection with Springfield. We were out there with a couple of the neighbors about a month and a half ago. A couple of things we noticed was routinely it would back up to here and sometimes right about to where that white pickup truck was. And also, and now Gail's on the call or something like that, but a couple of people were there with us. There must have been like 4 or 5 fire engines come by about every 20 minutes or so coming through this. So making sure this works a little more efficiently is going to be important. And so that was one of the things we're looking at, primarily trying to see, can we add a new lane in here? Can we make a better function, both of the traffic lights and with the turning lanes, to eliminate this stacking here and, allow for better traffic flow? That's one of the key parts we have here, in addition to the impact on Springfield Boulevard as well. And so for that, what we're proposing to do is, this is a sideways diagram perspective, as if you're on Old Backlick looking north. And we're proposing taking within the existing street lines, taking there, widening a little bit and putting in 3 traffic lanes going north, continue with 1 traffic lane going south. And the goal basically be to see how you have 3 lanes going there, probably cutting back here a little bit, add for additional turning lanes capacity. So you have direct lines into 395, cutting in there. And then we'd also be looking, we have a master arm right here, looking at probably some changes to signalization either here or also here. And we'll get into that traffic a little bit. I don't have my traffic engineer with me today, but we will have him at other future meetings. The goal basically being to allow much greater inflow of northbound traffic on Old Backlick Road, either directly onto eastbound Old Keene Mill Road or directly onto 395, and kind of start eliminating as much as we can, as much of the backup right here on Old Backlick Road.
What's up? You're all ready for bed.
And so next thing I want to talk about is existing conditions on Springfield Boulevard. So this is on Springfield Boulevard, kind of looking west. And I'm looking east. Then you have, this is the western parcel right here. This is the southern parcel right here. And the traffic there is basically 2 westbound lanes here, 1 eastbound lane here. And you have, again, these small here, at least you have better sidewalks here than we had on the other block here. But small sidewalks there. And, there's not a lot of opportunity. There's no on-street parking. There's no pedestrian interactivity and stuff like that. Things are very functional, just representative of how development was done at the time. And so what we're proposing to do there is keep it in the lane that this is on a perspective here, looking east, that same perspective, but you have changing it to, looking west, same perspective. So you have 2 westbound travel lanes, is keeping it like that, and a travel lane here, and then having a parking lane here and another parking lane here. So you would have, and then on top of that, we'd also have trees, sidewalk, an additional parking area here, and having the buildings pulled back. So you've got a pretty big plaza on both sides, and that's what I was showing earlier. So you've now taken it, so we got the same 2 westbound lanes there, the same first eastbound lane here, but now you've got places you can kind of pull in and you can park if you're the public. You can pull in, you can park, pull in if you can park, like that. And then you've got landscaped areas, you've got trees, you've got a public plaza, and then you got a larger private plaza that will all basically seem as one. And the goal basically being to, stack these with restaurants or some sort of retail and have outdoor seating associated with them, and doing the same thing on this side. And the goal hopefully being to, look here, kind of start creating kind of this promenade as you're going up and down Springfield Boulevard. All right. So when we started doing this, part of this question was about traffic and impact. And so part of that is looking, first of all, there's the sidewalk inventory. Right now we've got, we talked about here, we have a small little 5-foot long sidewalks. We've got 6-foot sidewalks there. You don't really have sidewalk on this Old Backlick Road thing. Goal, we would be putting sidewalks there. And then, we're doing a transportation study. We've submitted that and it's being reviewed by staff. This is kind of the history of it. And then, scoping study was done in January. We've gone through 1 review of staff already. We'll talk about that, but we've gone through a couple revenue reviews with staff, trying to tighten up the traffic study and come up with ways to maybe, make this work. This would be done at the applicant's expense, but make this work in terms of a more efficient flow of traffic. Make this work. This works fairly well right now from an efficiency standpoint, but having it more attractive, more encouraging what we want to see ultimately, which is greater, pedestrian intersect, more connectivity, just kind of walking around and allowing people to kind of get out and enjoy the retail and the first floor uses there, greater activation. But that's kind of where we are in terms of the traffic transportation study. The comprehensive transportation study is still ongoing. It will be something we'll continually come back to the committee and talk about with staff. I think we have, I know we don't have our traffic engineer here right now, but I think we do have county staff here as well. They may be able to answer some of the questions. This is existing conditions map, talking a little bit about, what's going on in the area. We have, a lot of traffic, a lot of transportation, but I want to get specifically more to what's going on and being included within the study. Included within the study we have going on is our projects are right here. The numbers for proposed development, 122 units for Amherst, that's the project next to us, if that were to be going forward. There is no proposal for that right now, but that's being considered. This is the new parking garage. Those numbers are also included within the study. This was the new self-storage facility that's being proposed in there. Include Villa Park, which just recently was approved. Those numbers are included in here. This is the Innova project. As Katrina said, I don't know the status on that. I think that may have pulled to the side here for right now. But those numbers of the residential development there, that's also being included within traffic study. The Frontier Drive project, I know, has been moved to like a third tier at this point, so I don't think it's an active proposal there, but the numbers that were being proposed there are also included within traffic study analysis. And then this is the Franconia Triangle project, which is, here's where right now the Franconia Government Center is. Here's the fire station. This is a proposal to redevelop this with mixed townhouse and multifamily. Yeah, so those numbers are also being included. And real briefly, what those numbers look like, we go ahead and we're doing a comparison to what the property is already planned for from a comprehensive standpoint project. And it's primarily now planned out for office. Office has historically been a very high traffic generating use. And really what it boils down to, and I can make these numbers publicly available if anybody wants to copy this, but we essentially, this is really the kind of active thing here. Under the comp plan, we'd anticipate having 5,433 daily trips from those three properties that we talked about if they were developed as office, per the current plan. Under the proposed plan amendment, that number would be reduced before any TDM, traffic demand management measures, down to 3,323. So about a 40% reduction, down there. So a reduction of about 2,119 trips. Multifamily residential is a lower traffic generating use than office. Then if we go ahead and factor in the traffic demand measurement reductions, it further goes down, and you go from that 3,300 down to about $2,400 trips a day. So ultimately, with TDM measures, if this project were to be approved as currently proposed, and with the TDM measures, you have about a 54% reduction in anticipated traffic versus the property being developed as it's currently comprehensively planned. I think this is something people really wanted to find out about. And this is, I think we talked to looking here, this is Old Backlick right now. And so this is where I said we were out there and, you had the fire department coming through about every 20 minutes or so, engine just comes screaming through there. And sometimes they get right here and they'd have to jump over to this lane and just to get over there. And, it needs to be addressed. And so the question is, how do you do that? First, the question is, we're designing this. If the county wants to go ahead and have, an overpass like you would have here, the buildings that we're designing would be able to accommodate that. But right now, we're not anticipating that's going to go forward because, this is the development. The backups you have here are backups as if the property was going right to Old Backlick. If you're going northbound on this and there's a bridge there, you don't have those backups because they go over to the other side. But so the study has right now, currently we have two northbound lanes. And then, we have, northbound, we're proposing to make it to 3 northbound lanes. So anticipated traffic backups by 2045 with 2 northbound lanes alone without any kind of timing improvements to the signals would be all the way to here. Okay. By 2045 with the 2 northbound lanes and adding in traffic timing improvements for signals and stuff, that reduces it down to about there. What we're proposing, again, part of our project is to take the 3 northbound lanes. So 3 northbound lanes by 2045, and this is with the development, gets the traffic to right about where it is right now, currently backing up sometimes. With timing improvements and 3 northbound lanes, it would get it to right about the intersection of Springfield Blvd and Old Backlick. You're still going to have some backup. It's just you're intersecting with a major intersection. But, we think if we were able to put a 3rd turn lane, maybe shave some of this off, allow dedicated flow right in there. So you're not having people come right here and there's traffic coming here. And necessarily you're trying to sit there, how do I pull out? How do I pull out? How do I pull out without getting hit? Well, maybe if you had a dedicated lane, that avoids some of that. But, with 3 lanes, that, provides greater efficiency. And so that is one of the things we're looking at in terms of a traffic solution. And again, we are just in the first inning of, a fairly long game, both the comprehensive plan amendment and the comprehensive plan amendments coming with recommendations. The hard math really gets done during the rezoning process. And that's when we really talk about the numbers, because right now we're talking about maximum units that we'd be developing on this site. The project may come in with something less than that. If it comes something less than that, there'll be different traffic demand. but also, we anticipate the rezoning will be coming for this fall. But, you'd have to deal with the numbers you have being proposed at that time and do the traffic analysis based on that. But that's where we are with this. Again, let me just leave it this last page here. Get back up here. This is basically what we're being proposed. So with that, I will stop the questions and I'll stop the presentation and take questions.
So, sir, where are the people going in and out of the building to egress? Are they going into those 3 lanes that are going to go into 95? And how will they be able to get out of the building
Okay,
if
let me-
that's where they come out for
yeah.
the parking? And where's the parking being addressed? I didn't see that.
Good question. Let me pull this back up. All right. All right. For here, right now, it will be having vehicular access. Parking would all be within the building. All right. So you have come here, pull in, you'd have vehicular access in here. Right. For here, vehicular access would be right here. For here, vehicular access would be here and here. Parking would all be for parking, for guests, for associated retail would all be within the structured parking facilities. We're not anticipating doing any parking, for these on street.
So you're not going to have any street parking for the people visiting the retail? And if you are, how many are proposed?
We do that during rezoning when we do the calculations. The county has minimums that they want to see for every kind of retail use there. So let's say we had all this is like 6,000 square feet of retail for restaurant uses. The parking the county has a standard that says, those you must have 5 spaces for every 1,000 square feet of retail of restaurant uses. So within this parking garage, you would have that amount of spaces. We probably have a little bit more because, typically anybody who's leasing here wants to make sure they have enough spaces. But, you have to design the parking garage to have enough spaces for the tenants, enough spaces for the residents, enough spaces for their guests. And everybody's going to be in here or they're going to be in here.
You know how many parking spaces are going to be provided within each building?
We don't yet because we don't know how many units we're proposing. Right now, we're proposing maximums that you see right here on this screen. It could be less. It won't be more. And, these are fairly common standards we use throughout projects throughout the county. So, if you have, I think it's 1.4 spaces per multifamily use in the county, unit in the county, if you have 175 residential units, let me try to do the math here at the back of the envelope here. You would have at least, and again, at least 200. Say this project right here was 175 units. At 1.4, you'd have at least 245 spaces. And that's before we decide to put any additional in there for retail. And then, really it's up to the builder. The builder may say, okay, I want to do above the county minimum. Because at the end of the day, you want people living in your apartment who find the property useful. So sometimes you will do above the minimum because, people want to have guests over. The standard is supposed to incorporate enough spaces for guests, but sometimes people want more. So all that's decided when you get through the rezoning process. And so there'll be lots of time to talk about those standards, but that's basically how it works.
Thank you. My last question is, I didn't see any development for Amherst and that road in particular, especially with the geospatial and the other government building.
Sorry, I lost that.
Sorry, yeah, you cut out.
Ma'am?
So I think it was Allison. You
Yeah,
cut out.
Allison. I'm sorry. Yeah, Allison, I think I lost the part of you there.
Sorry, sir. Can you hear me now?
Yep, hear you fine.
Okay, I just wanted to know if there was some redevelopment for Amherst because those 2 lanes, well, there's 4 lanes, 2 in each direction, they get backed up and there's numerous accidents there right now. So
Yeah,
they're going to come to and from, Amherst to get to these buildings as the main thoroughfare. So is there some redevelopment going on with that road in
you
particular?
mean in terms of we're studying, like you say, you look at these intersections, we're studying these, and there may be, as part of the working with county staff, there may be changes to, I won't call it redevelopment, but changes to, the structure of these roads and how they're aligned, the very same way we're looking at doing this in Backlick and Springfield. So, and remember, this project right here is proposing access directly off Amherst itself. So I anticipate there will be. That would be done as part of the rezoning process, though. And so, there'll be numerous presentations back to the community on that. So, if you do have those questions and comments and stuff like that, please feel free to reach out to me directly. We'd love to get that. We did a really good meeting, about 2.5 hours or so, maybe 2 hours on site with Gail and a bunch of other folks, that kind of really opened your eyes as to what goes on Old Backlick during the course of just a random Tuesday afternoon. And that was like the thing with the fire station, how many uses there. I couldn't believe how many times the fire truck came rolling up there. And, the same thing, we were out there and we see things, but if the community see things that they think is also important to bring up, please let us know. And also, frankly, we're also happy to, just as we did over here, I'm talking to you from a late 1950s split level about 5 miles to the east, over by Richmond Highway. It's easy for us to come out there and do the exact same thing on site here, and we can talk with neighbors. All this kind of input makes it a better project. And frankly, I'd rather hear from the people who live there about what works, what doesn't work, and get the best of their experience beyond just doing this from a traffic engineering standpoint.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, because that's a major concern on Amherst. If you've ever been there between 4 and 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, it's slow going.
Yeah, no, I actually very painful moment in my life. I sold a Mustang GT down here and traded in for the Toyota Sienna when I was when the kids were young. And so very familiar with this area. It does get kind of crazy, but yeah, we happy to get more comments.
There was there was a question. Sorry, Mark, didn't mean to, but there was a question in the chat that maybe county staff, I think we could talk to Tom. I have Tom Burke here from FCDOT. Somebody had a question about in an earlier, this is from the chat, in an earlier slide, you proposed a backlick bridge over Old Keene Mill. Now you're showing 3 lanes, but no bridge. What happened to the bridge? So I don't know if Tom, if you want to talk to that.
Sure. The bridge would be a pretty significant infrastructure capital project. It's going to take a while to get it funded if it's what we decide to do ultimately. So what the applicant is doing here is they're providing an interim solution at grade by providing a third northbound right. And then if the bridge is eventually built, they're leaving adequate space or right of way to build that bridge. So we're kind of covering our bases by providing the interim solution, but then also leaving space for the ultimate. And Katrina mentioned an area plan on the horizon that we hope to do pretty soon. And at that point, we're actually going to, because a lot of people have talked about that bridge and whether that bridge is context sensitive and whether it really fits well, we're going to look at the bridge and potentially other solutions, maybe decide through a public process. So everyone would have a chance to provide input, but we'll actually take a deeper dive and look at that bridge as to whether we really think that's the solution that we need to provide that additional capacity.
Mr. Burke, could I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Would you be able to do this type of work, adding the 3 lanes concurrently while before the apartments are built, so that there's no interruption of traffic coming from the south or the west?
Well, I think we were probably going to need some right of way from the applicant. There might be enough room for the 4 lanes, but there wouldn't be enough room for the sidewalks that Mr. Biani mentioned. It's likely going to need to be a partnership with the applicant. So to be honest, I don't know whether we would be able to do the improvement ahead of the construction of the residential or not. That's something we probably have to give some thought to.
I would say on behalf of the applicant, we're happy to consider that. If it's something where I think, Tom's talking about, if you're not actually widening the road, we're trying to realigning it and stuff like that, we're happy to be part of that solution, and explore that. When it comes to actually rebuilding it, which will probably involve widening it and then doing the sidewalk and stuff like that, none of us can do that until the rezoning is approved, until it's been site planned and stuff like that, you know. And as we talked about earlier, I think that one of my earlier comments, that may be, you know, 3 or 4 years away to actually seeing shovels on the ground on that. But if as an interim meeting, I think that's what you're getting at, Diane. If there's a way to restripe the highway and work together on that, we'd be open to looking at that.
And in a somewhat related question in the chat, someone was concerned that you wouldn't be able to, if we did 3 northbound lanes, it would be terribly difficult to make a left out of the Five Guys Plaza. And I don't believe we would do the 3 northbound lanes south of Springfield Boulevard.
That's
so
correct.
I think the Five Guys would be adjacent to the 4-lane, 2 northbound, 2 southbound as it is today.
That's
I don't
correct.
think we would do that. So I don't think we'd have that situation. So hopefully that there isn't a safety issue as was pondered.
Oh,
Were there any other transportation questions, Vaughn?
I do want to know, this is Nicole. I would like to know, have you guys driven to that spot during rush hour? How do you
Yes.
anticipate people getting to it from north and south on the highway? Because I think that's the biggest failure in the communication to the public, because there is really only one way to get there if you're coming on off the highway. There's 2 ways, but one is really kind of dangerous, going down Old Keene and doing a U-turn. But how would you actually get there without creating a traffic nightmare on Bland Street or Brandon Avenue?
Can you clarify where the driver would be coming from and where they're going to?
When you get off the highway, you end up on the other side of the middle of the median. So you're on the side that has, you know, the shopping center and Paper Moon and such.
Yeah.
And then you have your choices to turn on Bland Street or to go up a little bit further and turn between the hotel and that Merv or the the auto shop, and then go that way over the bridge. So going over the bridge is pretty much the only real viable option besides driving down Old Keene Mill and you doing a U-turn at Spring Street. So even if you added 100 apartments, you're adding 100 or 200 more cars that are going to have to get over there. And the infrastructure right now only is 1 lane each kind of on Bland Street for turning left at that light there. And it's already a nightmare.
Yeah, I think a lot of the trips would have to use Bland Street. Some of the trips that are coming off of more like the 495, 395 area to the north, they can use Backlick, take a left onto Bland and the left onto Amherst. There's a couple different ways. You could also
You really end up at the same spot no matter which way you go. Conveniently is to end up on Bland Street, either taking Brandon Avenue or taking that little side cut through that takes you there, and now you're in a nightmare.
And I understand the question. We'll definitely be looking at that when we do the area plan. But people don't necessarily like when I say this, but we're tasked with looking at what would happen if the office buildings and the retail were to stay in place, because that's what the current comp plan allows. So there's going to be trips to the site. We look 20+ years out. We don't, understanding that the site might be vacant now, we can't necessarily assume that it'll be vacant in 20, 21, 22 years. So we look at what the trips might look like with the existing approved land uses, and we look at what the trips would look like with the proposed residential uses. And it's actually a lesser impact, like Mr. Vianney had pointed out with his trip generation table. When we get to the next step, which is the zoning, you'll look a little bit closer at the shorter term traffic impacts, and we'll look more at the existing development versus proposed. But I'm not skirting the question. It is legitimate. We'll definitely need to look at the different routes. And how people can get to and from Amherst, which is the one bridge. You know, that's also the question of whether we need that second bridge. That's going to be a big question to answer. I'm not sure I can give you a satisfactory response tonight, but just know that we will be looking at that very question and how traffic's going to flow in the future for the CBC.
thanks, Tom. I think Miss Willis, you had a question. You have your hand up.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I just have one more question about the parking of these new buildings. Will it be multi-story parking
Yep.
underneath these buildings, or will it be street parking? street level parking?
You know, it'll be multi-story going at grade, multi going up. Basically, think of a structured parking garage, you know, wrapped around it by apartment buildings and retail. But yeah, it'll be probably 6, 7 stories of office of park.
Okay, because I can tell you I'm the HOA president for a community, a townhome community right now, and 1.4 parking spaces per unit is grossly underestimated.
Right. And I'm talking about that's the standard for apartments. And, you know, the townhouse, I don't have that number handy, but I know it's larger than that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I want to say, I don't know if anybody has more questions like that, but, you know, I'll put my number and my contact info in the chat. Just so anybody has it, you know, sometimes people, if you're like me, every time I think I've got everything, I think of one question the minute I click off, you know, and then I think Katrina, that you guys are going to publish this or probably on YouTube or something like that. So, you know, everybody should have my contact info if they don't already, but, you know, feel free. I mean, we're at the very beginning of a fairly long process. You know, these are great questions, great ideas, and more will come. And feel free to reach out to me, reach out to Katrina as we're going through this. We're obviously different perspectives, but, you know, we want to be responsive. I want to get feedback.
Okay, Ms. Wells, did you have another question?
Yes, I do have one more question. What about public transportation near those areas? Right now, most of the Fairfax County Connector buses go around either Bland or Commerce Street. They don't pass by that intersection. Are you thinking or adding commercial or public transportation to that area?
I'm going to go ahead and Tom, if you can.
I mean, the brand new commuter parking garage is located less than a quarter mile from the site, so it would be a very easy walk. I can't speak to the routing of the Fairfax Connector bus routes in the area. I don't know that we would send a bus up Backlick. If there was more of a development there, the Fairfax Connector staff at DOT is always looking at different areas of the county and updating bus routes and service hours and frequencies and routing. So it's something that could be looked at. I don't think they would do it now because the area is mostly vacant or are underutilized. But if the buildings were to be built as proposed, you might have a reason to send a bus maybe up Backlick and over Springfield Boulevard. It's probably going to go to the garage anyway. So I guess to answer your question, I think that is something that would definitely evolve over time as the area redevelops. Something we keep an eye on.
Right. Thanks, Tom. I think there was one more question I don't know, it was in the chat by Rinko. Anyway, I mean, I know, Tom, you touched on the bridge, but the question is, what are the county's alternatives to the bridge construction? So if you wanted to maybe just talk about the study or whatever, you know, address that, Tom, again.
Sure, yeah, we don't have alternatives as of right now. We are seeking funding to do a transportation study where we would fully evaluate the future capacity needs within the CBC and connecting over to the transit station area and the mall on the other side of 95. It's going to be definitely a challenging area. There's not a lot of room to play with. The I-95 gets in the way as well. It's if you want to bicycle or walk to the mall, you got to go all the way up to Commerce or all the way down to the bicycle bridge, which I think is south of the Franconia Springfield Parkway intersection, if I remember. Maybe it's around there where the parking lot is. But we'll definitely be looking at and developing alternatives. And again, it'll be a fully public process where we'll be seeking input. But we'll definitely, it's going to be tricky. I don't know the answer yet. What an alternative to a bridge would be, because there's so few opportunities to connect north-south.
Great. Okay.
I had a question for Mark. Can you tell us what type of rates these apartments will be? I'm assuming it's not going to be luxury apartments.
It depends on, you know, the units themselves. There will be units that have to, you know, the county has a process where it says, okay, there will be a portion of these units that are apartment development, that are affordable units. And, some of there's nothing called workforce units, and one's like 60% AMI, area wide median income. The other one's in workforce, I believe, is typically between 80 and 100% AMI. So you'll have a portion of those, usually about less than about 8-9% of those. The rest of these will be market rate units, and we do expect that they will be, these are, our goal is to do very nice apartments, a really nice place. What we're proposing to do is a lot of work. It's going to be, it has to be a viable business model for it. We're not proposing doing, substandard apartments. You're probably looking at about 4 or 5 years in the future. So I don't know what the business case will be at that point, but the goal is to, have very nice apartments. The goal is to use this to kind of help, enliven the area. Lots of disposable income, things like that.
Right. I think we've addressed most of the questions in the chat. And if there are any other, does anybody, okay, sorry, Chris just raised his hand. Chris, you go ahead.
Yeah, a question for the property developers, I guess. But so if you're living there, you get 700 families with lots of kids and pets, you're gonna go walk them. The nearest greens public space is like what, half a mile away down Old Key Mill Road next to Garfield. Nowhere else, unless you're going to be sending pets and people on private property around there. There's nowhere else nearby.
Yeah.
If they go to the east or the north, that's a death trap across 95 ramp for Old Key Mill. So you're limited. But what are these folks going to do?
That's part of what we have to figure out in the rezoning process. You see projects change rapidly, sometimes massively, between what's proposed in comp plan versus what ultimately gets redeveloped. And these are the things, you can't not provide the parks. You can't not provide the open space. You can't not provide these, these kinds of things, and frankly, the county staff won't let us, and we don't want to do it, because if we do it, and then you get something that turns out to be unlivable, then you're left holding the bag on what's probably a couple $100 million worth of development that can't really be recouped from. So that is why when I said earlier about us going out and meeting with people on staff, walking around, stuff like that, this is the kind of intel we need to know. We're gonna have to find a way, and maybe that means lowering the numbers a little bit, however we do it, to find the solutions to these problems. We don't know
The
yet.
numbers that they say that they require something like two acres of green space for that size of development for public space.
I think it's 2 acres of is open space, and then we're going to get something for like parks, and and I'll defer to Katrina and Graham here. I don't have the numbers in hand of me, but this is ultimately the numbers will turn on what is being proposed in the rezoning process. It's driven by a population anticipated unit count, and so whatever we end up doing, like say we end up coming forward with 600 units in comp plan, well, it actually only comes up with 400 units. Well, then it drops by a third, and the numbers are based on that. But some of these things are just, even with if you had 100 units, where do you find the space? Those are honest questions that gonna have some tough answers. We're gonna have to try and figure that out.
I'll add a little bit to that as well, and thanks for the question. I'm Graham with Department of Planning and Development, so with Katrina on this. One question that we've been kind of asking ourselves is that, with regards to the comp plan amendment, at this stage, there are urban park recommendations that currently exist in the Springfield plan. So there is an existing Springfield plan, of course, as Katrina described, and public parks, urban parks, open spaces are a part of that. And so as a part of the amendment process, and what we'll be doing hopefully at the next stage, is trying to figure out where would it be ideal for an urban park to exist for the broader Springfield area. So it's a good question, and one of the things that we'll be looking at is, are there areas, if there were a bigger consolidation, for example, that might make sense. So we're still trying to figure that out, but we definitely are taking a look at it now at both the comp plan stage as appropriate, but to Mark's point, kind of the more specific details of what the character and everything would be, and exactly where it would be located relative to this development would happen at the rezoning stage. So just did want to assure people we're taking a look at that question as well, and hope to have something with regards to a recommendation when we bring this to public hearing.
Hi, this is Allison. I can't see where the raise the hand function is. But I wondered what happens to the existing businesses that are there now? Do they get offered, first dibs on the retail space, or, is it priced too, high that they won't be able to have their business there, or how does that work?
Typically, we try to incorporate folks into the resulting development if they want to be there. The challenge you have is, let's take a kind of look by like the eastern portion of the property. That thing's completely vacant because unfortunately we rezoned it. We started doing demolition on it. You can't install anybody in there right now because the buildings are partially developed and the property's been rezoned. So the uses that were in there can't go in there now under the current zoning. So that's not a problem for the eastern portion of the property. For the western block of the property, has like 4 or 5 tenants in there. I think there's always, when you have good relationships, you want to get those people back in. The question is, when those buildings go away and you got to scrape the property, you got to go through the construction process, stuff like that. That's 2 or 3 years. Those folks probably are not going to want to stick around for that. And they may, decide to go somewhere else. If they decide to come back in, I don't certainly, if it's something allowed in the current zone, I think we'd love to have them back in there. But, from a practical business standpoint, most of them are probably not going to want to kind of take off from their business for 2 or 3 years while the new project's being developed. So I anticipate that they will likely go to other properties in the area, move their businesses at that time. But no one's thrown out. There are leases. All these leases have development clauses in there, and people get notice and stuff like that. And so we have pretty good relationships with all those tenants anyway.
Yeah, thank you for that information.
I have a question about the parking on Springfield Boulevard at the end of it by Motel 6. Currently, the hotel and somebody with a limo company is utilizing the space. And then on Springfield Boulevard on both sides are dump trucks that are owned by residents that live within the community that park there because there's no parking restrictions. Will that all be changed so that way that can be utilized by the people who are in the buildings, or will those?
That's a perfect example when I say I want to get community feedback. That's exactly the kind of stuff we need to know. Because I can drive by this. I'm 5 miles away. I can drive by here 10 times, but I'm not, going to know that level of granular detail. We've done on other projects before. We have this problem. I live over Richmond Highway. We have an issue too where we get nice big projects developed, and the state still has like an access road on the side. So you have your nice big project there, and you have these guys who line haul truckers that sit there and just park it and use the thing as a trailer transfer station. And it kind of blocks the whole thing. When we come for those projects, sometimes we'll get what essentially parking restrictions put on. The county doesn't own the land, but they can control the parking on the side. And so that's the kind of detail, knowing that's going on there, we'll fold that into when it comes for rezoning and likely ask for those kinds of approvals to prevent, we don't want, big dump trucks being parked in front of brand new development either.
Some of those dump trucks have been there since the last time you had your site plan amendment meeting. And then someone's ripped the fence down. There's new graffiti. There's people in that building over there. I mean, I'm sure it's a nightmare for you, but like those people aren't going to go away just because you build a fancy apartment building there. Just FYI.
They won't, but eventually when the project comes in, eventually that kind of displaces them. But I mean, I know exactly. We did a project and about 3 years ago during the pandemic, and it was for replacing a self-storage facility that had one of those roads right in front of it. And the great thing, if you go on Google Street View, you can drop your little yellow guy on Google Street View, and when it pulls it up and over the window, if you're lucky at given the site, you can have, and it has like here's what the view looked like in 2011, 2013, whatever like that. We had in front of this car, we had a Chevy on a trailer that had been there for 6.5 years in front of it. And then you had this collection of food trucks that were just being kind of parked and sometimes being repaired and stuff like that. So it's something you see commonly throughout the county. But this is the kind of feedback we want to hear, and to make sure we think we're coming up with the best plan possible. And you give a beautiful new development, we can solve all the issues with parking and open space and stuff like that. And that little detail, doesn't get included. And next thing you know, you have your nice new beautiful development. You got a dump trucks parked in front of it. So good points.
And I just wanted to also bring it because there have been a lot of questions, just the last few questions, some in the chat about open space and the potential. I mean, one of the things that we as staff are kind of looking at is, I had mentioned the parking lot across from the parking garage. That's part of the Amherst site. And, we're just as a potential option, that could be a potential option for open space as well. If because that particular parcel is somewhat isolated from the other areas. So I just wanted to put that out there. Okay, well, I think if there aren't any more questions for the evening, then I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. Really appreciate the attendance, really appreciate all the questions that everybody has. I had put my email in the chat, and then also marked it as well. So if you have any further questions, please reach out to us. And if we don't know the answer, we will find the right people who do have the answers and get those to you. And we probably will have, another meeting of some sort in the future. But we'll advertise that like we did this one, or we'll at least be, I know, going to the land use committee. So to discuss this proposal. All right. Okay, great. Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody, and have a good evening. And just give me a few days to get everything up online. So if you want to share the recording with anybody else. All right.
Thanks,
Great.
everybody.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye.